Hey guys, so what you're about to see is a video of me interviewing McKell Fillmore, who is a life coach and podcast host of the Relationship Anxiety podcast, all about relationship anxiety. We're going to be talking about what relationship anxiety is, what's the difference between an unhealthy relationship and relationship anxiety, and some tips and tools to move forward with your relationship if you're experiencing relationship anxiety. I wanted to create this video for my couples and anyone else who is experiencing relationship anxiety. And I experienced this when I was dating my husband and trying to figure out whether we should get married. And I know that a lot of you are as well. I hope this can be helpful. I apologize for the format. I Instagram lived the video and the saving didn't work as well. So it is in a vertical format. So hopefully you still can focus well on that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to look at the end. There's going to be a resources tab that's going to say McKell's website and her podcast link and all these different stuff for different resources you guys can have. Okay, leave some comments below on how helpful this is for you guys.
Hey, McKell!
Good.
Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, what did you say? Sorry.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, so for everyone who doesn't know, I'm doing this live tonight about relationship anxiety, and McKell is a certified life coach for the Life Coach School. And she specializes in relationship anxiety. And so tonight she's just going to be talking to us a bit about what relationship anxiety is and how some tools to move forward and to recognize it and to conquer relationship anxiety. So, McKell, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So like Carolyn said, my name's McKell and I'm a certified life coach. And I started working with people who deal with relationship anxiety, largely because about 4 years ago, when my husband and I started talking about getting married, I had so much anxiety come up for me. Like, crap, is this actually the right decision? Should we get married? Should I be with someone else? And just like way over analyzing the relationship and not really knowing what was going on. And I learned about relationship anxiety through that experience and learned all of these tools for how to manage and cope with it. And so started working with people to help them really learn how to conquer relationship anxiety because it's so paralyzing.
Totally. Thanks for sharing your experience. I think that, especially people who have gone through that, hearing someone else that has is comforting because you're like, oh, I'm not the only one who, when making such big decisions, am a little unsure about it and need to feel comfort in knowing that other people feel the same.
Right. And I think like one of the reasons like I love doing stuff like this or like my podcast is because like when women and men hear about this and they're like, oh my gosh, like, yes, that's exactly what I'm going through. And there's just such a sense of relief of like, I'm not alone in this.
Totally. That's so powerful. So for people who are listening tonight and have never heard of relationship anxiety or don't know what it is, could you just explain it a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So relationship anxiety is essentially like having a lot of fear, worry, doubt that comes up around having a committed relationship. And this takes all sorts of shape and form. I break it down into, I think there's 3 ways this shows up for us. Some people experience it as what I call self-centered relationship anxiety, which is where a lot of the fear is about you, afraid that you aren't enough in the relationship, that maybe your partner doesn't think you're attractive enough, maybe your partner doesn't love you enough, that maybe they would leave you for someone else. And so it's constantly like checking in with them and like, do you actually love me? Do you love me enough? And like trying to get that reassurance.
Right.
The second form of it is partner-centered anxiety. And that's where we're focused a lot on our partner being enough. Is our partner attractive enough? Do we love them enough? Do we really want to be with them? And really overanalyzing everything about our relationship with our boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whoever, and questioning if we really love them and overanalyzing like their flaws and different characteristics, comparing to other people. And then the last one is relationship centered, where it's just questioning the relationship as a whole. Like, are we really meant to be together? Like, do we love each other enough? Are we a good fit? Do we really connect enough? So it's just really questioning the relationship itself. So it happens in all sorts of ways and forms, but really it's manifested through just like doubting and questioning everything about your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship itself is healthy and good.
Right. No, I like how you break it down because I think identifying what you're feeling and identifying which one of those three that you're feeling really helps. Because identifying what you're feeling helps you to be able to move forward and to know how to move forward. So thanks for breaking that down.
Right.
How do you differentiate between relationship anxiety and unhealthy relationship? Because I think a lot of people who have relationship anxiety are like, well, am I actually in a bad relationship or is this just me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Because there are bad relationships out there for sure, right? I think the biggest thing I look for is like red flags in a relationship. So, are they narcissistic? Is there abuse that's happening? Addiction, um, destructive behaviors. Those are red flags of like this is not working.
Yeah.
And those are the biggest things I think to look for. But I generally look at it as like someone with relationship anxiety is generally in a very healthy relationship. And they are looking at all the little things and trying to find any reason to hurry and jump ship and get out of the relationship because their brain is telling them like danger, danger, like this is dangerous to be in a relationship, you need to leave. That's safer, you have more control there. Versus someone who's in an abusive relationship, generally they're looking to justify that it's okay. I can be with this person. It's not that bad. They are not only not looking for reasons to leave, but they're overlooking reasons that they should be.
Right. Totally. No, thanks for breaking that down. I think that helps because a lot of the time, especially when you're in that mindset, it's hard to be able to tell. And so hearing something like this that helps you break it down helps a lot.
No, so because like you said, a lot of times with relationship anxiety, there's that fear of like, okay, well, does this anxiety mean something? Maybe my relationship isn't healthy. It's like, no, this is just your brain doing what brains do, which is freaking out and trying to keep you safe. And committed relationships are scary to a lot of people.
Right. No, totally. So then, for those who are listening, who are experiencing this, whether it's anxiety about themselves, about their partner, about their relationship as a whole, what advice would you give them? Those who are dating and trying to figure out whether they're going to get engaged or whether they are engaged, what advice do you give to people who have relationship anxiety?
Yeah. So when I'm working with my clients on this, there's so many tools we work through, but like I just thinking like of advice I would give anyone that's struggling with this is like being able to recognize that like part of being human is having negative emotions, is having negative thoughts. And just because you're experiencing anxiety doesn't mean you have to make it mean something about your relationship. That you need to find out about your relationship, that it's wrong, that you shouldn't be with him or her. It's just like your brain is doing what brains do, which is freaking out and feeling anxiety. Because most likely, if you are an anxious person, if you're dealing with relationship anxiety, you've probably felt this way. Maybe not around a relationship, but you probably felt really, really anxious and freaked out about other things in your life, right?
Yeah.
I know for me that's the case. Probably have had anxiety since I was like 8.
Right. No.
And it's not like once you have a good relationship that all of a sudden like a switch is gonna flip and then like you're just gonna feel like calm and confident and never feel anxiety again. Because I think sometimes we get that message from movies, right? Is when you're
like fairy tale. You just think you're gonna be perfect and never be sad and everything's gonna be like a fairy tale.
Right. Yeah. That like if you found the one, you're gonna feel amazing 100% of the time, right?
Right. No.
No, like that's totally a fairy tale myth because yeah, you bring your brain with you, you bring your emotions with you into a relationship. So
Right.
not expecting yourself to feel like rainbows and butterflies in a relationship, giving yourself permission to be human in a relationship, allowing yourself to have anxiety and not being quick to freak out like, oh my gosh, I just questioned my relationship or I just like why am I worrying about this? Obviously this means my relationship is wrong.
Right.
But being able to recognize like this is just my emotions and I don't need to make it mean anything about my relationship.
Totally. I love that. Because then once you start thinking about what you're thinking and then feeling emotions about what you're thinking, and then it's just like this big spiral and
Right. Right.
yeah.
Because you have emotion like anxiety and then you start thinking like I shouldn't be feeling this way. You start judging yourself for having anxiety and then you're adding shame on top of anxiety and it just like compounds like you were saying versus just like letting yourself feel anxiety.
Totally. Totally. So people who are listening, who are experiencing this, what actionable steps would you say should be taken? If they're listening, they're like, okay, yeah, that's totally me.
Yeah.
I totally feel that way, and don't worry, you're not alone. I think a lot more of us do than people say. What steps would you say from here somebody should take?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, like when recognizing, like, okay, experiencing anxiety is like most of us feel anxiety in our bodies, right? Like it's something we experience physically. Like our heart starts racing, we have shallow breath, like maybe your face is flushed, feels hot. It's a little different for everyone, but that's what anxiety feels like for me.
Yeah.
Being able to learn how to feel your emotions
Mm-hmm.
rather than like just trying avoid them all the time mentally,
Yeah.
trying to talk yourself out of it. It's like, it's okay for me to feel anxious about this, like giving yourself permission to be
Yeah.
anxious. And then, like, writing stuff out. That's like one of the biggest things is like when we feel anxiety, that's like our body saying, there's stuff going on in your brain right now. And you can ignore it and keep trying to shove away your emotion, or you can say, hey, what's going on in my head?
Mm-hmm.
And like looking inward. And so I think the biggest thing is like take out a piece of paper and write everything that's coming to your mind, like everything that's bugging you about yourself, your relationship, just like get it all out on paper. And it might not feel great, but it's like cleaning out your room. It's not fun, but you got to get the garbage out there. We don't
Right.
clean out our brain nearly as much as we should. So journal it all out and then really like look at your thoughts, like read it on paper and notice like all the stuff you've been thinking. And it's a great way to just start looking at your thoughts objectively and separating yourself from being so absorbed in all the panic and freak out.
Right. I know that for me, I'm definitely a journaler. I have had a journal since I don't know how long, and I've kept them. And just being able to write something down, I'm definitely that kind of person that after I write it down and I look at it, I'm like, oh, that felt good. Like, I feel better now. I feel like it's down and I don't have to think about it anymore. It's
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, because I think like when we journal, is it helps us get this realization that like thoughts are just thoughts. Like that's
Right.
it. And we want to attach meaning to them, right? Like we want to make our thoughts mean our relationship's wrong or that something's wrong with us and that we're broken. But like the only thing your thoughts mean is that you're human and you have a brain. Like that's all your thoughts mean. And being able to separate yourself from it by journaling and just saying like, oh, okay, that's like all that I was thinking and it's just thoughts and it's okay.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much, McKell. So we put up some somewhere where people could submit some questions. So we have a few people that have submitted some questions that I'm gonna read, and then we can kind of go through. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're gonna have 5 questions. So the first one that we received is, how do I know if anxiety about a relationship is coming from God or from myself?
Yeah. So totally get this one. I think this is a big one that comes up for a lot of people is like, okay, I'm questioning this. Like, obviously, this must mean something. Like, God's like trying to tell me something. I need to hurry and get out of my
Right. This is member of the church, I feel like.
Right, right. Yeah. So, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as is Carolyn. And so I think like having God as a part of our lives and decisions is like a big part of that, right?
Right.
And obviously everyone has different beliefs, but like when you believe that like God can help inspire and direct your life, it's really important to be able to distinguish that from like just your mental brain chatter. Because sometimes we, oh, this thought just popped into my head, like maybe that's God. It's like, or it's just your brain being crazy and being a brain.
Right.
And I think the biggest way to be able to identify that is just like recognizing, I think like is how God speaks to you. And like this is my personal belief is that like I don't believe that God speaks to us through fear and anxiety. I believe that he inspires us through confidence and sense of peace and calm, that that's how he directs us. And I think that yes, God can direct us if like maybe this isn't the relationship that we want to be in our lives, but I think more often than not, when we're just feeling this sense of fear and panic and doubt, I don't think that that's God operating in our life. I think that's being our. And so when you're trying to make that decision of like being in a relationship or not, is like making it from a place of calm and confidence and peace. Because knowing like that's where God is. Like not in the fear and the panic and I gotta get out or I have to stay. It's not urgent. It's just like calm. And so making decisions about your relationship from that kind of energy.
Totally. Totally. And something that I want to add too, um, I think that when we go and we're trying to move forward in a relationship, whether that is with a lot of people that for committing whether you want to get married or not, or however you want to make your relationship more serious, that big step of like, wow, this is a really big deal. I think a lot of times, at least for this, it was this way for me when I was trying to decide whether I should marry my husband. I had a lot of anxiety, and when I went to go pray about it, I was just like, okay, like, should I do this? Let me know. Bye. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
I put a lot on God, and I received some guidance during that time in my life that has since really helped me and helped me then. And what somebody told me is, you know, the scripture James 1:5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. It doesn't say if any of you lack answers. And I think that if we go to God and we ask him for wisdom to make decisions on, like, if we ask for wisdom to make the decisions ourselves and then go back to him and ask for that, like, peace, then that is a lot better of a process than just saying, okay, just let me know what to do, because I just don't think that we get answers that way most of the time.
Right.
And I think that that is a lot healthier of a way, and it's helped me a lot. So first you submitted this question, I think that could be a lot of comfort too. It was for me, and hopefully it can be for you too.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like one thing I've been learning is I think a lot of times like the things we want and our desires, like I think if they're good, like God gives them to us, right? And so yeah, being able to like, yeah, turn to God, but then also is trusting yourself too. And not necessarily trusting that freaked out, flighty, panicky part of yourself, but like that calm, confident part of yourself and knowing that like God trusts you too, right?
Right. Yeah, I think a big part of that, like you said, is trusting yourself. I don't think that God wants us to just, okay, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, I
Right.
think that's why we're my personal belief is why we're on earth is to make decisions and to become more able to make decisions for ourselves and not just be told what to do. And so I think a big part of that is like using the wisdom that we've had to make decisions. And then it doesn't mean you have to leave God out of the process. You can then say, okay, this is what I feel good about. Please help me to feel peace about it. Or to let me know if this isn't right. And then move forward.
Yeah. And I think that like God can speak to us and like you were saying is like just like calm, like simple things.
Right.
right? Like where it's just like, yes, like this is good. And it's just like very simple. Whereas when it's all this like story, right? Of like, then this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen, and then we're gonna end up divorced. It's like,
Right.
that's not God. That is your
Right.
going to the future and telling you all the things that could go wrong with your life.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you in saying that I don't think that God speaks to us in anxiety. I
Yeah.
don't think that's what he wants us to feel.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
thank you so much. So the second question is, somebody submitted, um, I'm worried that my significant other might be better off without me. What do I do?
Yeah. So when you think that thought, my significant other might be better off without me, how does that make you feel? Probably a lot of anxiety, right? And I would really like question yourself on like why are you thinking that? Because obviously like I believe like every person is 100% worth being loved. And
Right.
that includes you. And so like when you ask that, like when your brain tells you that, it's like it's your brain telling you a version of like you aren't enough. Like you're not adequate, like you don't deserve him, right? Versus like being able to start believing like you are totally 100% worthy of love and not questioning that. I think our brains really like to discount our own worth. I think everyone kind of has like this inner bully that like tries to put you down and like you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, like you don't
Right.
deserve this. And being able to talk back to yourself and say, no, like I am a good person, I'm worthy of love, and stand up for yourself. Have
Mhm.
your own back like you would a good friend. You wouldn't let bully your friend. Why are you letting you bully yourself?
Totally. Totally. And I think it goes back to what you were saying before about the different kinds of anxiety you can have in relationships, like the one that's more focused on yourself. I
Right.
maybe at different times in our life we experience different versions of relationship anxiety, or maybe we're more focused on one kind.
Yeah.
Um, but I think
Me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I think being able to identify that is really helpful, and knowing that okay, this is something I have. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It
Right.
means that I have these thoughts that I can work through.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just showing you like these are just thoughts. Just because you think that thought, it's not a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and like, I think you're totally right. Our anxiety can change over time. I know at the beginning of our relationship, that was more my fear was like, what if he leaves me? What if he'd rather be with someone else? And in the moment, I was like confident he was never going to leave me and he was going to be with me. And I was like, well, do I actually want to be with him? And I started out that way. And so just knowing like our brain loves finding reasons to be afraid, right? And so, like you said, not making it mean anything, just like noticing that like that's a thought you're having. It's not a fact about yourself.
Totally, totally. I love that. Thank you. Okay, our third question is how do I deal with the fear of being heartbroken?
Yeah, I think definitely people have that fear in a relationship, right? That is why so many of us deal with anxiety because we are afraid of negative emotion in the future. We're afraid, most of us, of like ending up divorced or stuck in a relationship that we're not happy in. Like that's the biggest fear for a lot of us, right? Or that they leave us, something along those lines. And when we are thinking about that, we're not living in the present moment, right? We're projecting into the future and we're feeling that pain ahead of time. Like, I love that quote about how, like, when you worry, you suffer for something endlessly, right? Because you're mentally reliving it over and over again.
Yeah.
And so
Uh,
reminding yourself to just like be in the moment and feel whatever emotions are happening right now to you because you're afraid of something that might happen in the future and you're feeling all this pain and anxiety for something that hasn't even happened yet, right?
mm-hmm.
You're afraid maybe he'll leave you. And so instead of worrying about that, it's like, let's come back to today and feel whatever's going on for you today instead of mentally projecting into the future, like something we don't even know that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Second part of it is like having the confidence that, like, if your heart gets broken, that you can manage heartbreak, that
Right.
strong person who can feel negative emotions. Like that's what heartbreak is. It's a really like negative emotion that a lot of us want to try to avoid. And so we're like, I'm going to control the future, but we can't. So
Right.
give yourself permission that like, if that, I can feel the heartbreak. I can go through that negative emotion.
Right. And I think that a lot of times, you know, wanting to not be heartbroken as much as we want that to happen, like it's always worth trying to find love than to just always be afraid of it and to never find it. And
Right.
so anyway, I really like what you said about that though.
Yeah. And I totally agree. It's like I think that a lot of times is we feel like we have more control on our own when it's just us. When we are loving someone in a relationship, like we're being vulnerable. You know, we're putting our heart out on the line for someone else and like and that's risky and scary to us, right? But like that's part of being human and like that's living life to the fullest. Like, do you really want to play it safe and like have your walls up and never be able to love someone? Or do you want to take that risk? I think it's a risk worth taking.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thanks, McKell. So our fourth question is, I know I want to marry my significant other, but they don't know if they want to marry. Trying to know what to do is very hard.
Sorry, I was getting some static. Read that one again.
Hey, no, you're good. I know I want to marry my significant other, but they don't know if they want to marry me. Trying to know what to do is very hard.
Yeah. So I think that kind of comes back to a little bit about what I was talking about a minute ago. Like bringing yourself right now into the relationship is like your significant other, maybe they don't know what they want to do in a few months from now, but like right now, they want to be with you, right? Like you guys are in a relationship together. And so enjoying and being at where you're at now, instead of like, I need to know right now if you want to get married. Because
Right.
a lot of pressure and like I would guess maybe, I don't know, but with this person's relationship, like maybe their partner deals with some relationship anxiety. Who knows? But
Yeah.
like for me, being on that end of like being the one that was worrying and freaking out about it, it
Right.
was great to be able to have my partner show me just like unconditional love of like, it's okay that you're not ready yet. It's okay that you don't know. Like, I'm here for you. I love you. And like, I want you to make the decision that's right for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
know how hard that is to do for someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like I'm not discounting that like oh you should just be like oh it's fine you're like not ready to commit yet like it's
Right.
hard for a lot of people but like I think it's deciding is like do you love this person and are you willing to work on it like do you
Right.
wait for them and love them unconditionally as like they go on their journey because you both are going to have ups and downs throughout your relationship and like who knows exactly what that's going to look like
Mm-hmm.
but like certainly the decision to get married is like just one of the first ones right where you're not on the same page and you can look at this as an opportunity to like learn how to love him or her more like as they're figuring things out and as they're doubting and you know in the end if like you guys end up deciding to go separate ways so like if you choose to learn how to love him and go all in like
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna end up a worse person because of that like it'll make you just that much better for the next relationship and that person that you are supposed to be with.
Right. No, I love that. I think a lot of times couples don't decide at the same time that they're both ready to move forward. And
Right.
of course, I don't know every couple, but for me and my husband, we were definitely had different times where he was more sure of things first, like you were saying with you, and then I was the one that was more like, okay, I'm having fun. I think this is a big thing. Give me a minute. Figure this out. And I think that for me, it was the same thing that when my husband, my now husband, not husband at the time, but when he was patient with me and we were still partners in that decision. Like we, even though it was a decision that I then had to make so that we could like have a future together, he was still being a good partner through it, and he was being supportive of me. And like I feel like that is what love is. One of my favorite quotes is, "Love is what you go through together." And that's a hard, dating is a hard thing to go through together too. Like you're going through stuff all of your life, including when you're dating someone. It's not like just because you're dating, like we said before, means that your life is all rainbows and butterflies. You're still going through stuff and figuring out stuff together. And I think that having to make that big decision, like you said, is one of the first big decisions you guys make together. And so being able to work together through that and to, learn how to support each other is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like I'm sure you felt this way, but I know I did, was like I felt so much more confident in our relationship because of how unconditionally he was willing to love me and how patient he was with me and my ups and downs and my like being so anxious and not knowing what I wanted to do.
Totally.
And the other thing I was just thinking that like to this whoever asked this question is also like just thinking about like um for you, if you knew right now like that he was ready to like go all in and commit on this relationship, what would you get to feel? Like, do you think you would feel love, peace, acceptance? Like, figure out what emotion you think you would get to feel if he was like, yes, I'm all in. And
Mm-hmm.
notice how you're putting that all in his hands. Like, I get to feel love or I get to feel peace once he says he's all in, versus like taking your own control and power back of like, I can feel love and peace now, independent of whatever like he's deciding to do.
Totally. I love that. I think a lot of us do that because of like the same reason of fairy tales and movies where we think that our happiness should come from being in a relationship or from feeling accepted by somebody else. But how important is it to really feel that within yourself, being able to feel confident and feel loved and feel important because you have self-worth rather than needing that from somebody else, which isn't healthy. You know what I mean? And
I,
so I think that's so important. I love what you said.
right. And just going off of that, because like the moment he says, yes, okay, I'm all in, like,
Mm-hmm.
let's be together, then your mind is going to go to some other reason that you're not enough, right? And
Right.
learning how to believe that you are enough and love yourself independent of what he's choosing. Because the moment he commits to you, like you're going to find some other reason. And that's what our brains are going to do. Like our whole life is like, hey, I'm not happy. I'm not enough because of this, this, and this. And the reasons change. But really, it's just all because of our own stuff inwardly, all of our thoughts and emotions going on.
Right. And something I want to say too is I think especially people who have mental health issues, if it's anxiety or depression, a lot of us feel like that makes us less lovable. Like if we have these issues, they deserve somebody who doesn't have that. And I think going back to one of my favorite quotes, love is what you go through together. Like I think looking at it as something that allows you two to grow together more and to love each other better and to have a better relationship. That's a lot better of a way that I found to look at it because guess what? I know that you don't feel perfect, but neither is he or she. And they have their own things that aren't perfect, and so is any other person you're going to date. There's stuff that's not perfect about them, or even a different person that they would date. No one's perfect, and so being able to just say, like, we're both bringing things to our relationship that aren't perfect, but we're here to work on it together. And we're both deserving of the love and help of each other rather than just feeling unworthy of each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, love what you just said. I 100% agree. It's like that you don't need to be perfect, and neither does he, right? Like, goes both ways. Die freeze. Um,
Yeah. So
yeah,
sorry, you did for
so
a second.
okay, cool. I'm back. um, like knowing that like, yeah, like you don't need to be perfect and neither do you. And so like giving yourself and him or her permission to be imperfect in your relationship instead of having like either really, really high perfectionistic expectations for yourself or your partner, right? Because in the end, like all that does is like that keeps you from not connecting as much versus genuinely showing up as yourself, right? Like that's where true authentic true connection is like I'm willing to be a broken human being and so are you, and like, and that's where we're going to learn to love each other.
Right. And a lot of those things that we're thinking about when we're dating, that's like whether it's focused on our partner but of ourselves, like, oh, I'm imperfect in this, he's imperfect in this, like that's something that is going to continue on, like even if you decide to get married, and that doesn't need to be something you need to be afraid of. Like, I mean, obviously you want to decide whether that's a relationship that you want to commit to in the first place, but once you've committed to it, like that's just something that you get to work through together to make you closer together.
Yeah. And also, I love how you said is like mental health. Like, I think there can be a stigma around it, but like when we think of someone with something physical going on, we don't look at them and be like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, you shouldn't
Right.
be sick right now. You should be like working just fine. Like, why are you not walking on your broken leg? You should be able to walk on your broken leg. We don't do that with physical stuff, but with stuff, we're like, you should totally be different. You should be able to push through this. It shouldn't matter because we can't see it. Versus knowing like if it was like something physical going on, like how much more compassionate and loving would you be towards yourself, right? If you broke your leg versus when it's anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have that same compassion towards ourselves. And so giving
Yeah,
your to just like being loving and patient as you go through this.
totally. Totally. Thanks so much. We have one more question, which I feel like is one of the ultimate questions. So number 5 is, how do I know if he or she is the one?
Yes. Like I feel like this is something that like a lot of our anxiety stems around, right? It's like, is this the one person? Like that's a big question, right?
Right.
And so what I think is so helpful is to know like that the one is like a belief that some people like we've picked it up right from the media, from culture, that like there's this one person out there that you need to find, and
Very.
it's super romantic like idea, right, that there's one person out there you're meant to be with. But I would just like remind yourself is like the one, that's not like a fact. We can't take a blood test and like take their blood test and be like, oh yep, they match, like you guys are perfect together.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And like it's a belief for some people that works really well. They believe that they found their soulmate and they feel really good about that. But for other people, especially those who deal with relationship anxiety, that belief just creates a lot of stress, right? When you think like he's not the one, or maybe he is, maybe he isn't, like that just creates a lot of pressure for you. And
Yeah, word.
I would just question if that belief serves you. Do you really want to keep thinking like that there's one person out there for you? For me, like, and my clients, kind of what I believe is just that like the one is not like that I can be happy with my partner and I could be happy with someone else too. And
Hmm.
I think sometimes it can kind of be like an opt out in a relationship of like, oh, we're not happy together. Obviously, he's just not the one, right? Versus like, I'm gonna make him the one. I'm gonna go all in on this, and we're gonna make this relationship amazing, right? And be
Totally.
willing to show up and do the work rather than like leaving it all to like fate kind of thing.
Totally. One of my favorite quotes when I had a lot of thoughts about this when I was dating my husband was David A. Bednar said in a devotional one time that to feel love, the emotion, you have to do love the verb. And I think that a lot of the times we think that, like, oh my gosh, I don't feel love towards them. Like, I just went on my first date, or like, we've been on a few dates, and I'm like, I don't feel in love with them. Like, what even is that? But a lot of the time, I think that's just because we haven't done love the verb yet. Like, are we serving them? Are we like it's love isn't something that's just effortless. You know what I mean? Like the one is just gonna show up and we're gonna be magically in love and we're gonna always be happy, like we've been talking about before. But I just love that because it takes away that the one you make the person you choose the one for you by how you treat each other.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of times we get that idea is like we talk about like falling in love, right? Like love just happens to us. We just like stumble upon it versus like you were saying, like love being a verb. And I think of love in so many different ways, but like I feel like it comes down to is like we think loving thoughts that
Mm-hmm.
cause us to feel love and then act out of loving emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think also just that like sometimes with love we put it on as like it just needs to happen to us versus recognizing like sometimes it's like I'm gonna do work and I'm gonna show love and I'm gonna serve and that's how I feel love. Because how do we explain like in a relationship, like one day you're at a high and you feel really, really good about everything, and then like the next day, like you don't feel like you love them anymore. It's like it's the same guy, but you're
Right,
thinking differently about him. You're showing up differently in your relationship.
right. Totally. Yeah, and even in marriage, there's ups and downs. Like, to maybe you guys have a disagreement one day. You can't just be like, oh, I don't feel in love with him. He's not the one anymore. Like, I think that once we get into the mindset that we have to make them the one and we have to make things work and the emotions are normal and that they don't define whether someone's the one or not, it's almost freeing to be like, okay, this is okay for me to feel these emotions. And remember last time when we got through this, like, we're gonna be fine. And it's okay to have these feelings and to work through them together.
Yeah. And that like because we have these feelings and emotions and disagreements and all the things that like that's ultimately how we can have a better relationship and come to love him and ourselves more. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of like the last thing I would want to leave everyone with is like just thinking about how like um relationship anxiety does, you know, it is a struggle like for a lot of us that are dealing with it, but knowing that like this is an opportunity and an invitation to like learn how to love at a deeper level and that you going through this doesn't diminish your relationship at all, but actually could mean that like you could have the most strong and amazing love because of everything you're going through.
I love that. Thank you so much, McKell. I think that's a really good perspective to have. It can be just a trial that you guys get to go through together that's going to make you even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So, thank you so much for coming on here. In closing, is there anything else that you want to say to everybody here?
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for showing up. This was super fun. I just wanted to like let everyone know. I guess just kind of last like actionable steps for you guys is like, um, you know, like I said, take some time in the next day or two to like journal everything out, like get out what's on your brain, and then if you're ready to take this kind of work further, you're tired of like doubting your relationship and like questioning things and feeling anxious all the time, as I'm offering mini coaching sessions that's like totally free. They're super fun. You'll walk away feeling some peace and feeling more confident about your relationship. So if
Mm-hmm.
that's